Welcome to SchezzWho, your top spot for politics. My role in delivering the best in politics requires your role in consuming this channel. So like tonight's video, comment on tonight's video, share tonight's video with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to the SchezzWho YouTube channel. That's the best way to make this content get picked up by the greater YouTube algorithm. So subscribe early and often. Now on to the folks and organizations that help this channel along. I want to begin with The Dissent Agenda, a new podcast hosted by Melissa Lucasen and Cody Connor, whose StreamYard account I am using to do this very show. So make sure you go over to the Dissent Agenda, give it a like as well as subscription, and start following their great shows. Mr. Farley Perkins at the Farley Perkins Agency helps you with insurance at times that you need it. Hit up 757-271-6655 for anything that you might need in insurance-wise. If you're looking for some good Southern-based food in either Portsmouth or Virginia Beach, then head over to Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. Remember, in Virginia Beach, it's across from Regent University, and in Portsmouth, it's at Portsmouth Boulevard at 4206, Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. Afterwards, you're going to want some nice sweet treats, so you head on over to LG Sweet Boutique on High Street in Portsmouth, a great place to get your sweet tooth checked out. Now, my good friend Mr. Seiko Varner runs Positive Vibes Incorporated, which helps you with credit fixes, tax resolutions, lending private money, debt consolidations, a lot of good stuff like that. If you need help along those lines, then hit 757-932-0177 to reach him. He's also a great DJ if you need a DJ. And he also created the Hampton Roads Green Book, a fantastic application to help you find Black-owned businesses in Hampton Roads. And also don't forget the Black Swan podcast, Black Swan Mindset, The Chronicles, hosted by my awesome wife, Andrea Dixon Chesvener. Spotify is where you will find those, so tune in to the Black Swan Mindset Chronicles for the latest through Black Swan. Now, tonight, we roll back into Chesapeake, Virginia. There's a special election for a vacated school board seat. And our guest for that is going to be Amanda Quillin, running to take that seat. She's been a 16-year Chesapeake resident. And she's a mom of two sons who have used the Chesapeake public school system. She's a Navy wife, and the husband served for 21 years before entering civilian life. With her deep roots in Chesapeake community, she aims for advocacy for children, family, and educators. She serves as an assistant professor in Old Dominion University's Health Sciences program. She also serves on the Commission of Health and Well-Being in Chesapeake. She has years in a clinical background, program leadership, curriculum development. She's also nationally certified on health education and literacy. A woman of many talents and experiences is Dr. Amanda Quillin, who joins SchezzWho right now. Thank you for joining. And my first question out of the gate is, how are you on this great night?
I'm doing great. I really just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. As you know, in a lot of the forums and the events that I get invited to, I get 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to say my piece. So I really appreciate this opportunity to dive a little deeper into my thoughts and my campaign and my priorities.
Yeah, thank you so much, of course, for being willing to share. Next question is, how was the last week or so been on your campaign?
The last week has been really great. We've been going really strong. Just this weekend alone, we covered over 6 miles canvassing, getting our info out, talking to fellow Chesapeake residents. Monday, I was able to attend Congressman Bobby Scott's annual cookout. That was a great event. It was really energizing. I feel like it was a very exciting and energizing day, especially for those who are running. Sometimes you just kind of need that little boost of positivity. Also, my signs are going up all over the city, so people are going to start seeing those everywhere. Good or bad, I know some people don't like seeing all the signs. I am trying to be very mindful of where they're going. So that's just kind of another milestone that we're hitting in the campaign.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, of course, you're running in the great city of Chesapeake. So I'd like to know some of your favorite things about Chesapeake, say your favorite businesses or favorite hangout spots, favorite restaurants, community groups, stuff like that. What are your favorite things about Chesapeake?
So my family loves to eat. We love good food. We really enjoy going to Vino. Their new location is beautiful. When we're in the mood to eat out in the evening, we like to sit on the waterway at Lockside there on their deck. Chesapeake, we're really lucky that we have some great outdoor areas to explore in parks. And then something that a lot of people don't realize we have in Chesapeake is hockey. So my family spends a lot of time over at Chilled Ponds this time of the year. My husband and I actually help run the booster club there for the junior hockey teams. So a lot of people don't know we have great hockey right here in Chesapeake, but that's a community group that we really enjoyed being a part of.
Excellent stuff. I've heard about Chilled Ponds. I've never made it to the ice, though, so perhaps one day I'll be able to stop by and check it out. Now, also in Chesapeake, you're subject to a citywide at-large vote. And I live in Portsmouth. They also do everything at large. Conversely, our Norfolk and Suffolk neighbors have direct districts. Our Virginia Beach neighbor, where I'm from, is currently fighting out a battle to keep a 10-1 district system or make a 7-3-1 partial at-large system. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Chesapeake's system? Should at-large stay or should direct districts come into play?
I would actually be in support of a district system. And I know that that would be difficult for some people who are used to relying on the votes of the entire city to keep their seats. But right now, with this at-large election, when you're running, you typically need a lot of funding, a lot of name recognition to really reach everyone in the entire city. And not only does that make it more difficult from a campaign perspective to hear those grassroots voices, those small community voices, it also makes it feel like some communities aren't getting a voice on city council and on the school board. I think a district system allows every community in Chesapeake to feel like they have representation. And that's not to say that if that were to happen, that school board members would only be concerned about their districts. I think that we would still work together and keep every student in Chesapeake in mind. But I do think that having a district system and having everyone represented just creates more accountability. It gives families more confidence that they're voting for somebody that truly understands their area and their community. I mean, we're a city of over 250,000 people. We are large, we're diverse. I think a district system would just make sure that every neighborhood has a voice, not just those with either the most resources or the loudest voices.
Oh, I'm going to agree with you in many ways. That is a fight I've usually been to Virginia Beach City Council to authority to them in person. So I would agree with a lot of that logic. Now, recently, teachers have become upset with the new dress code implemented a week before Chesapeake schools started. There's also additional policies that appear to be micromanaging them. Planning time and overall support appear to be taking a hit. And so I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? And what would you be pushing to do instead?
So I wanted to take a look at the dress code myself. And so I did that. And I also attended the most recent school board meeting when some members and educators did come to speak to the school board and share their thoughts on the dress code. And for me, while I personally do think it is too strict for the role that we're asking teachers to play, I mean, we're asking teachers to be on their feet, to bend. Some teachers, depending on the age, could be in the floor with their students. So I do think overall it is a little too strict, but even more troubling to me was the timing and the way in which it was rolled out. A week before the teachers are asked to come back, they are spending money for their classrooms. We know that a lot of teachers spend their own money to make sure their classrooms have everything they need. Not only that, a lot of teachers have kids of their own. They're spending money on school supplies for their own kids to go back to school. And now, right before the beginning of the school year, we're telling them they need to go essentially possibly buy a new wardrobe. I think this is something that could have been told to the teachers at the end of the last school year. That would have given them the entire summer to buy items here and there throughout the summer. It would have also given them the ability to take advantage of the tax-free holiday weekend to be able to get some deals on stuff that weekend. So I really think that if they had just let them know earlier so that they could have taken advantage of those opportunities, that would have helped. And then also, I think they should have considered a stipend I'm not on the school board yet, so I don't have a look at all the financials, but I think that if you're going to spring it on somebody at the last minute, a stipend would have been appreciated.
Kind of like the sound of that. I always wondered why it takes so much money out of the personal pockets of teachers to have to fund what goes on inside their classroom. Usually, as a government service, you think the government would be willing to provide a little bit more of that. So I kind of like that idea. Next, so Dr. Brittany Walker left the seat in Chesapeake in May. In the past, the board has given such a vacancy to a former board member who didn't want to run again in the following special election, but would just serve in the interim. Dan Stoller ultimately was picked to serve in the seat. He also happens to be running in the special election. I'm curious if that just sounds like it's a bit of an advantage to be able to sit in the seat while running for that seat as well.
Yes. So according to the meeting minutes from the school board meetings over the summer, there was a current member who wanted to stick with the past strategy of bringing on a former school board member that could hit the ground running, need minimal training. 2 former school board members, I think, did kind of step up and make that offer. There were 44 people altogether that put their name in for that interim seat, and the board ended up interviewing, I think, 5. And so I do think anytime you're an apparent incumbent, I mean, it's going to give you a bit of an advantage. I mean, you're in the seat, you're doing the job, right? But in my opinion, in this particular strategy, I don't know that it's going to be that much of an advantage. I think that because he was appointed, the community still feels like they want a say in that decision. They still want to say in who is taking that seat ultimately. And so I think that this November, we're going to see who they think is best suited to be in that position.
Sounds reasonable to me. Now, Chesapeake, like many cities, many districts, it's facing challenges in attracting new teachers and retaining teachers as well. What ideas do you have to turn that momentum in the other direction to attract new teachers and keep the ones you have?
I think the biggest thing is being respectful and supportive. So that means respecting their time, their education level, their expertise. I mean, right now we're not respecting their time. At the last school board meeting, they talked about, we've guaranteed planning time for our teachers. They're going to have a guaranteed planning period every day. And while that's true, that planning period is now being taken up with mandatory meetings, 504 IEP meetings, grade level meetings, and similar requirements that is now taking that time and forcing them to continue working past their contracted hours. And that's on top of duties that are already taking them outside of those hours, like after school duties, recess, bus. And so I don't know many professions out there where we routinely, regularly just expect someone to work outside of their working hours without getting any additional pay for it. So I think addressing things like that, again, being respectful of their time, would go a long way. We also have to make sure that they are getting paid well. And that means things like retention bonuses. Teachers should not have to work 2 jobs to make a living wage. And we have many that are doing that right now. There's a tuition reimbursement program for going back to school. That should be made easier to access. It's pretty complicated. And then not only, we need to reward them when they make that decision to go back to school. The pay increase right now for going back for an advanced degree is almost not worth going back to school and taking that time away from their jobs and families for a lot of these teachers. I think we also have to create an environment where administration feels like a support system and not the enemy. Right now, for example, our paraprofessionals, our teachers' aides, are routinely getting pulled from their classrooms, from the teachers that they support and from the students that they support, to serve as substitutes when subs are needed, instead of utilizing the substitute pool. So one thing that I would want to do is put policies in place that require us to utilize the substitute pool first before we start leaving teachers and students without that needed support, so that we can pull these people and then put them in these classrooms to serve as subs. So a lot of these things are just leading to low morale, feeling like they're unsupported, feeling like they're unappreciated. And so not only increasing the pay, which again, you shouldn't have to work 2 jobs to make a living wage. I think showing them appreciation and respecting their time and their expertise would also go a long way to not only making them want to come here, but then want to stay here once they're in Chesapeake.
Sounds about right. Now, speaking of teachers, there are some teachers in Chesapeake that didn't get paid during the summertime, I understand, due to some changes in the system that was being used. What's up with that, if you could fill us in, and could you help change that for the next year?
So the way I understand it from things I've read and people I've spoken to is they decided to start using a new payment portal, but teachers weren't really trained on it until the beginning of this year, meaning that those who worked over the summer did not receive adequate training on it. So not only did they not get paid, but they were in a way almost blamed for not knowing how to use it correctly, despite they didn't get adequately trained on how to use it correctly. And this seems to be a consistent issue. Substitute system, I've heard, is going to be different. They're using a new ID scanning system that nobody's really sure how to use yet. And so this seems to be a consistent problem. And to me, this is a pretty easy obstacle to overcome. And we do this in higher education all the time. When a new system is decided on, part of the decision conversation includes how are we going to train? From the get, we talk about, okay, if we're going to implement this, what's the training going to look like? How are we going to make sure that everyone's adequately trained? And that training should include getting paid. You should be getting paid for required training that is required to know how to do the basic functions to carry out your job.
All right. Now, and researching a little bit going into this particular interview, I learned a little bit about a master's facilities plan, which I think might lead to some the plan for infrastructure updates in Chesapeake, and I think they're hitting a bit of a snag. Where are they lagging? And what can the school board do to sort of hasten it and get it back on track?
So this is a really big one, and this has taken a lot of my time to try to understand. So there are 2 things. There was a master's facilities plan. They worked with a consultant that was published in 2021. And then we more recently have the capital improvement plan that will take place from 2025 to 2026. And so if you're looking at that, phase 1 of the master facility plan would have been from 2021 to 2026, which means now toward the end of 2025, we should be at least 75% done or nearing completion of a lot of those phase 1 projects. However, if you look at the capital improvement plan and you compare it directly to the facilities plan, most of the phase 1 projects are still either in the planning, the design and planning phase, or the very early construction phase. I think all but one has been delayed into the late 2020s. And because it's a phased approach, when phase 1 gets delayed, phase 2 gets delayed, and so on and so forth. And so there have been, from what I can understand, again, not being on the school board, there have been multiple reasons. Of course, the biggest one that is always an issue is the cost. There have been supply chain issues. We know that construction costs have gone up across the board, but it also comes down to funding. So Chesapeake relies on what's called a lockbox funding mechanism. So City Council does designate specific revenues to go toward the school board. The problem is currently, as it currently stands, it's not going to produce the funds necessary to finish all of the capital projects that we need to finish. And so for me, I do have some strategies for this. I think we should be prioritizing the quick wins that make the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think we should be leveraging other funding sources. I've done a little bit of research. There are grants out there. There are grants for infrastructure. There are grants for workforce development. There are grants for energy efficiency and energy performance. And I understand that these aren't things that a lot of the general public know how to seek and know how to apply for, because it's just not something that we regularly learn how to do. And so I feel like that's another strength that I bring to the table, is working at a R1 research institution. I know how to seek out grants. I know how to apply for them. I know how to advocate for this type of funding at the state and federal levels, because I've done it before. And so it is difficult, and I don't think it can all be put on the school board, because again, funding is tough.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that there are some little things that we can do to kind of help the process along that maybe we're not tapping into yet.
And I like the idea of the board members themselves being the advocate voice, either in Richmond or toward DC, to get those grants, because when you think about it, and as you've already mentioned, yeah, it is very tough for the funding to come out of Chesapeake only. If Richmond can help out a little bit, and definitely if the feds can help out, that lifts literally weights off city of Chesapeake. They don't have to cut as much stuff because they can get the help from it. And I like the sound of you being the one to advocate from your position. And I would encourage, of course, other school board members to do that, not just in Chesapeake, but definitely in Chesapeake.
And if you don't mind, I'll add.
Yeah.
I would also be in favor of pushing council to bring back the construction proffers. We are seeing new neighborhoods and new developments go up all the time. And I personally think that the growth should help pay for the additional classrooms that it requires. That's all public data. You can look. We haven't been receiving those since 2021. And so I think that would also help offset some of these costs, especially the costs that we're seeing related to increased student enrollment.
Right. I like the sound of that as well. So should the school board do some teacher-based town halls or listening sessions in order to give educators more influence over the policy decisions of the schools?
Yes, and this is actually one of my big platform priorities that I talk about a lot. This is one thing that I plan to do without a doubt, that I plan to push for if I'm elected. Teachers are the subject matter experts in their fields. They're the ones in the classrooms. They're the ones doing the work day after day. And yet rarely we're asking them for their input, for their ideas, and what they think about certain policy decisions. At the university level, we form committees to oversee big policies like this. We have a faculty senate for a reason. So that faculty does have input into policies, and that we can contribute to ideas when these policy decisions are happening. And so I would love to implement something similar at this level through teacher town halls and listening sessions, and creating environments where teachers feel comfortable sharing their ideas without fear of punishment. I have heard from multiple teachers over the last few weeks who said, I went to a city council member, I spoke up, and within a couple of weeks, I had a letter of reprimand in my file that they claimed was for something else, but that I feel was because I went and spoke at the meeting. And that, again, that has come from multiple teachers that I don't even know that have come up to me at events and spoken to me about this. When I mention the idea of a listening session, they say, I would love that because right now I don't feel able to speak freely. And so I really want to be able to listen to what they have to say and then really take those voices with me to the table where these discussions and these decisions are being made. I can't bring them all physically in there with me, but I can bring their ideas and I can bring their voices into that room with me.
I like the idea of more influence from the teachers because they're the ones who are literally bringing the service to the students of Chesapeake. Speaking of, again, of students in Chesapeake, in October of last year, a student took a loaded gun to Grassfield High School. Now, since that time, Chesapeake has done some random sort of sporadic metal detector checks. And I'm curious from your viewpoint, is that enough? Does anyone out there want more? And is metal detectors a solid answer to gun violence possibilities in local schools?
I think that until we as a country can do something about stricter gun access nationally, I am in favor of metal detectors. We have a lot of great reactive systems in place right now. We have our resource officers, we have the Raptor system, we have reactive things in place that are great, but I think we need to be more proactive. And I do think that metal detectors would be a way to do that. I know that as parents, I'm a parent, we have concerns about the impact that that's going to have on our children mentally. Do we want them having to go through a metal detector when they go to school every day? But this generation is used to this. They are going through metal detectors at sporting events, at shows, concerts, every airport in the world. And the students I have spoken to would rather feel safe. They would be willing to do that in order to feel safe. The sporadic checks are great, but they actually are more disruptive to our students' schedule than having permanent ones would be, because they are sporadic. There's not really a set protocol in place. Students don't really know when they need to show up early to give themselves extra time for the random checks. And so I think a permanent solution would just become their new normal. Right now, we do have single access points for parents that come into the school, which I am in full support of. But I see the students go in the morning at the high school where my son goes. The students go in multiple doors. They're carrying backpacks. They're carrying lunch boxes. The ones that play sports are carrying duffel bags. The band members are carrying instrument cases, and we have no idea what are in those bags and in those cases. And so I think that would just become a part of their new normal, and we could make sure that things aren't getting in through those multiple access points in the morning that we don't want in the schools.
All right. Now, we have been through quite a bit of subjects. I'm curious if there are other topics or things that you might have heard when knocking on doors or something related to schools that we haven't touched on yet. I would like to give you the opportunity to present any other cool ideas you might want to as a potential school board member.
One thing that I'm hearing about is equity. Some of our communities don't feel like they get as many of the updates or as much of the attention from the school board as other school systems. You can also kind of see this, honestly, if you look through the capital improvement plan. There are certain areas that do appear to be prioritized for certain updates and upgrades and investments. And so I really want to take a close look at that and see if this is a systemic issue. What is causing some of this? What is causing some of the inequity? I know here where my kids live, they have sidewalks that they can walk on to get to school easily. Every school they've attended, they've had sidewalks that they could utilize. I was just canvassing in some neighborhoods a couple weekends ago in the South Norfolk area that my husband and I were walking on the street just to be able to canvass, just to be able to talk to people. And we looked at each other and we're like, this is how the kids are getting to school in the morning. They're walking on the road to get to school in the morning because there are no sidewalks in a lot of these areas. So those are the things that I've really noticed when I've been out there in the different communities. It does not seem like we have equity right now. It does not seem like you're receiving the same quality or level of education in all parts of the city.
I would second that. And I think among many ways to help out, direct district voting might also help with that as well. And among other things besides just equity, like the school to prison pipeline, stuff like that is very important to address, and it's got to be addressed the right ways. I like that you're already conscious of that and want to go literally to the source, school board, to try to influence positive change. So that's a pretty cool thing, at least to my ears. And my next question is sort of along the lines of the fact that you've already met a lot of people when going out to organizations, knocking doors, stuff like that. Let's pretend for a moment I live in Chesapeake. You knocked on my door, and as I happen upon opening it, what would be your pitch for why I, a Chesapeake citizen, should vote for you this November?
I feel like I bring the right combination of experience, education, knowledge base to the school board. I'm not only a mom of kids in the Chesapeake school system, but I am an educator. I understand how to look at a problem, how to come up with solutions, and then how to take action. And I would prioritize the issues that I feel and that I'm hearing from the community are the biggest issues to people. I would focus on teacher recruitment and retention and support. I would focus on ways to make our children and our educators safer every day when they walk through the building. And I would focus on taking a very, very close look at investments in infrastructure, investments in equity throughout the city of Chesapeake. And I feel like my background and my experience really puts me in a great position to bring a new perspective and a new voice to the school board.
All righty. Sounds pretty cool. Now, that shall be it for us tonight, Dr. Quillin. I want to thank you for joining SchezzWho this evening to discuss Chesapeake schools, your campaign for the school board, and all that. And of course, I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you so much, you too.
Thank you. We'll catch you around next time. All right, folks. That was Dr. Amanda Quillin, candidate for school board in Chesapeake. And remember, every citizen in Chesapeake can vote for her due to their at-large system. So you folks remember that by voting time. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this show with a lot of your Chesapeake friends on the way out. And all of you guys have a great night as well. Thank you for joining.